Hi, this is Daniel from Raunow Consulting, and today I'm going to show you how to use network security groups on Azure. Now we can use network security groups to implement certain custom rules that will govern how our Azure resources can access or are accessed from the internet. So to start off, let's go to the portal. You can see here that I have a Azure resource group. Just zoom in a bit. I have a virtual machine. The virtual machine has an IP. We also have a virtual network and also a network interface card and the disk for the virtual machine. So now we're going to go and create a network security group. Create one. We'll put it in the same resource group and we will give it a very suggestive name. In the creation process, we don't really need to specify that much. And now we can go to our resource. And you can see here we have a list of inbound and outbound rules. Now these are default rules. These can't be removed or modified. You can see their priorities are very high numbers. We're going to come back to that later. First thing we need to do, we need to actually associate our network security group with the resource that it's going to apply to. We can associate it with interface cards or subnets. I'm going to associate it to the interface card of my VM. There we go. Associating it with the interface card means in this instance that it's the rules we put in place are only going to affect our VM. Also, they would affect any app running from that VM. If we were to associate it with a subnet, the rules would apply to all of the resources that are in that subnet. To start off, we're going to put in an inbound security rule, and we're actually going to add a rule that will allow me to connect to this VM. We choose RDP, that's what we're going to use to connect. You can notice that once I chose RDP, the port and the protocol are automatically defined. And the source, I'm just going to use my IP address for now. Action is allow, and we'll leave this on priority 100. Add, and we'll give it a second to actually take hold. And now that I have this rule, this should allow me to connect to my VM. So if I try to use the RDP protocol, let's see if it works. It works. Just put in my password. And as you can see, I've now connected to my VM. Okay, now I'm going to show you how these priorities work. So the priorities are actually evaluated in ascending order of their number, and they go from 100 to 65,500. So right now the rule that I set in place has priority 100, so this is the rule that will be evaluated first. I can change the priority of this rule to be something like 500, for example. And now I can put another rule in place also for RDP, and I'm going to show you how we will put this as deny and any source, any destination. So now what we're going to do, and we're going to put it as a higher priority than our previous allow rule. So now you can see here I'm actually even getting warnings. Now after I add this rule, give it a second to take hold, this will now prevent me from connecting to my VM. So if I go try to RDP into it again, the rule probably hasn't taken effect yet. We'll give it another second. Yes, and now, as you can see, I'm unable to connect to my VM. Just cancel this. It's going to time out and give me an error eventually. So if I go back to our rules, I can now, as you can see, the deny rule has a higher priority, though the number is lower, than the allow rule. So if I were to just switch these around, put in priority 600, we should also maybe give it another moment to actually take effect. And now I should be able to connect to my VM again. This kind of setup actually ensures that I can only connect to my VM from my current IP, whereas from all other IPs it is locked. So let's give it another try. Yes. Okay. And now I'm going to show you something else. You can see that I can actually access the internet from this VM. If I try to go to portal, I get the login screen. I actually have my login saved. Really logged into the Azure portal through the VM, so the internet works. This has to do with the outbound rules, which we will now edit, and I'm going to show you how we can actually prevent the internet from working on this VM. Go to the outbound security rules. You can see here we actually have outbound rules that allow us to connect from the virtual network. I'm going to add a deny rule, and we're going to deny HTTPS. You can just set this to 500. Priorities work in exactly the same way here. We'll give it another minute to take effect. Now, if I actually try to connect, you can see it's trying to connect to the Edge homepage. It's not actually establishing any connection. If I try to connect to portal again, you can clearly see no internet connection. However, recall that we only denied HTTPS. So now if I go to neverssl.com, which is a site that still uses HTTP, this should actually work, and as you can see, it's working. And now I'm just going to close this, and I can show you that we can also deny, of course, HTTP by adding another rule. In this particular instance, we'll give it a higher priority. We're not necessarily concerned with the actual priority. And we should put on deny, add, give it another minute. And if we go back to the browser and try the never SSL, we should also get a connection error. There we go. And basically that's all there is to it. As you can imagine, there are a lot of customization options here, and of course with more complex architectures you're going to have a lot of rules and a lot of things to consider. I know one of the most common examples that is given for a use case for this this type of setup is, for example, when you have a virtual machine or even just a web app that's getting access through the internet through a load balancer, but it's maybe accessing data from a database. You would want to have that database secured with a network security group that only allows the app itself to access the database, and it cannot be accessed from any other source. That's all for today. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I'll see you on the next video.